Listen to me. You weren't born to blend in. You weren't put here just to clock in, pay bills and survive until Friday. That's not living. That's existing. And the difference between the people who exist and the people who live is simple. The ones who live on their own terms. See, too many people wake up every morning and hand their power away to opinions, to fear, to approval, to comfort. You gotta stop letting the world dictate your value. You gotta stop letting fear decide how far you go. You gotta stop letting your past define your future. Every day people wake up, get dressed, go to work, come home, eat, sleep, and repeat. It becomes a cycle, a routine, a system that they've been programmed into. But deep down, something feels off. They know there's more. They feel the tension between what they're doing and what they were created for. But instead of breaking free, they stay stuck in that loop. Not because they want to, but because they don't believe they have another option. That's the problem. Too many people are existing instead of living. They're breathing, but they're not alive. They've got a heartbeat, but no passion. They're surrounded by noise, but inside they feel silent. Existing is easy. It doesn't demand anything from you except to show up and follow the script. But living with purpose, that requires something more. It requires waking up and choosing to be uncomfortable. It requires you to stretch yourself, to face what's holding you back, to dig into what matters. Purpose doesn't just show up on your doorstep with a smile and a map. It demands to be pursued. It demands work, faith, and sacrifice. That's why most people run from it, because it challenges them to look in the mirror and admit they've been coasting. You can't keep pretending that this life is enough when you know it's not. There's a reason you feel frustrated even when things are fine. There's a reason you feel tired even after you've rested. You're not exhausted from doing too much. You're exhausted from doing too little of what lights your soul on fire. You're drained, not because your schedule is packed, but because your spirit is empty. You weren't made to operate like a machine. You were made to create, to impact, to grow, to lead. And none of that happens when you're just trying to get through the day. People will tell you to be realistic. They'll say you should be grateful for what you have and stop reaching for more. But they don't understand. Gratitude doesn't mean you stop growing. It means you appreciate the moment while still fighting for the future you believe in. You can be thankful and still hungry. You can be content and still ambitious. That's what it means to live with purpose, to refuse to settle, even when it's comfortable. You're not being selfish for wanting more. You're being honest with yourself, and honesty is the first step toward purpose. You have to stop numbing yourself with distractions. The phone, the binge watching, the small talk, the mindless scrolling. It's not rest, it's escape. And every time you escape, you move further away from the life that's waiting for you. You need to slow down and get real. Ask yourself, what do I truly want? What breaks my heart? What makes me feel alive? What am I willing to suffer for? Because when you find that thing, that cause, that calling, that reason, everything else begins to shift. The routine becomes a mission. The pain becomes a lesson. The struggle becomes a path. People don't regret failing. They regret never trying. They regret silencing their voice to make other people comfortable. They regret shrinking their dreams because someone else couldn't see them. But you don't have to walk that road. You can choose differently. You can step out of survival mode and into alignment. You can take your hands off autopilot and grab the wheel. The world doesn't need another person who follows the script. It needs someone who is bold enough to break it and live by design, not default. Living with purpose doesn't require you to have all the answers. It just requires you to start asking better questions. It's not about finding your dream life overnight. It's about taking the first step toward it. It's about doing the hard inner work, the soul searching, the breaking, and rebuilding until you stop existing and start rising. One of the most powerful things a person can do is take full ownership of their life. Not partial, not halfway, not only when things go right, full ownership. Every decision, every choice, every result, that's where true strength begins. The moment you stop pointing fingers and start looking within is the moment you begin to take control. Too often, people look for someone to blame, their parents, their boss, the economy, their environment. And while those things might play a role, they don't define your destiny unless you let them. Owning your choices means understanding that your future is not written by your circumstances, but by your response to them. Taking ownership is not about being perfect. It's about being accountable. It means saying, yes, I made that mistake. Yes, I chose that path. Yes, I allowed that situation to continue. And it means deciding that today things are going to be different. That mindset alone shifts everything. Because when you blame others, you hand them the keys to your life. But when you take responsibility, you put yourself in the driver's seat. You decide where the story goes from here. It's easy to go through life following other people's expectations. It's easy to do what's comfortable, what's predictable, what's familiar. But easy doesn't lead to greatness. Easy doesn't create legacy. You have to choose what aligns with you, not what pleases everyone else. And that requires courage, because living by your own decisions means taking the risk that they might not work out. It means facing failure without having someone else to blame. But that's where growth lives. That's where confidence is born. You can't build a strong life on borrowed opinions. You can't create a meaningful path if every step you take is someone else's idea of what's right. Owning your life means making hard choices. It means saying no to the things that don't serve your vision. It means cutting ties with toxic people, walking away from distractions, and having the discipline to stay true to your values. It's not glamorous. It's not glamorous. It's not always applauded, but it's real and it's yours. There's a kind of freedom that comes when you stop asking for permission. You stop waiting for people to understand you. You stop trying to explain every move. You just move. You act. You build. You lead. And people may criticize, they may question, but they'll also start watching. Because deep down, everyone is drawn to someone who lives with conviction. Someone who knows what they stand for and refuses to compromise. You have to ask yourself, am I living by choice or by chance? Am I creating my life or reacting to it? The truth is, every moment you delay making your own decisions is a moment you give away your power. Life will pass you by if you don't claim it. You'll look back and realize you spend more time trying to be acceptable than authentic. More time trying to fit in than break through. But when you start owning, you stop making excuses and start making progress. Everything changes. It's not just about the big decisions either. It's about the small daily choices. What time you wake up, what you feed your mind, who you surround yourself with, what you tolerate, what you prioritize, all of it adds up. Your life today is the result of the choices you've been making consistently. And if you want a different outcome, you have to make different decisions. Not someday, not when it's easier. Nah, when you take full ownership, you begin to see setbacks differently. You stop seeing them as personal attacks and start seeing them as feedback, lessons, redirections. You stop getting stuck in guilt and start moving with intention. You understand that failing isn't the end. It's a part of the process. And as long as you're the one calling shots, you always have the power to pivot, to rise and come back stronger. You are the author of your life. No one else holds the pen. And the moment you embrace that truth, the moment you stop waiting for someone to fix it, save you, or give you permission, that's the moment you begin to own not just your choices, but your entire future from the moment we're born. The world starts handing us a script, a set of rules, a checklist, a set of rules, a checklist. Go to school, get good grades, go to college, get a job, get married, buy a house, have kids, retire, and hope you enjoyed the ride. Most people don't even realize they're following it. They just assume it's what they're supposed to do. They never stop to ask if it's what they truly want to do. The problem is that script wasn't written with your soul in mind. It wasn't built around your passions, your dreams, or your purpose. It was written to keep you safe, predictable, and within the boundaries of comfort. But comfort doesn't lead to fulfillment. Predictability doesn't create impact. If you want to live on your own terms, you've got to have the courage to tear that script up. You've got to step outside the lines. That's where growth happens. That's where you start discovering who you are beyond what people expect you to be. The script may have worked for others, but it might not work for you. And if you keep forcing yourself into a mold that doesn't fit, you'll never unlock your full potential. There's a voice inside you that knows when something isn't right. That whisper that tells you, this job isn't it, or we're meant for more, or this life doesn't feel like yours. But most people silence that voice. They drown it out with distractions, routine, and responsibilities. They're afraid of what it means if they listen. Because listening to that voice often requires change. And change can be terrifying. It means leaving the familiar, it means walking into uncertainty. But it also means finally living. When you decide to rewrite the script, you're not being rebellious. You're being authentic. You're saying, I refuse to settle for a life that doesn't speak to my soul. That kind of decision demands confidence, but not the loud, flashy kind. The kind of confidence that's quiet, steady, and deeply rooted in self-awareness. You don't need the world to validate your path. You just need to believe in the value of your vision, even when no one else sees it. The truth is, people will criticize you when you break the script. They'll question your choices. They'll tell you you're being unrealistic. That's because your courage exposes their fear. Your boldness reminds them of the dreams they gave up on. But that's not your problem. Your responsibility is not to make others comfortable with your life. Your responsibility is to live in alignment with who you are and who you're becoming. And that means doing what makes sense to you, even if it looks crazy to the world. Sometimes rewriting the script means walking away from stability. Sometimes it means saying no to opportunities that don't align with your values. Sometimes it means letting go of relationships that no longer support your growth. None of that is easy. But all of it is necessary if you're serious about building a life that reflects your truth. Every page you write from this point forward should come from a place of purpose, not pressure, not obligation, not tradition, purpose. The most powerful stories aren't written by people who follow the rules. They're written by people who dare to question it. People who said, I know this is how it's always been done, but that doesn't mean it's how I have to do it. They took risks. They trusted their gut. They made choices based on their internal compass, not external expectations. And because of that, they lived lives of meaning, not just success. You weren't made to live a copy and paste existence. You weren't made to fit neatly into a box. You were made to build something unique, a path, a purpose, a legacy that reflects the depth of who you are. And that begins the moment you stop asking, what am I supposed to do? And start asking, what was I born to do? The moment you stop following the script and start writing your own story word by word, choice by choice. Day by day, there's a big difference between living for approval and living with purpose. One keeps you trapped in a cycle of pleasing others, constantly adjusting yourself to fit their expectations. The other frees you to walk in alignment with who you truly are. Most people spend years, sometimes their entire lives, chasing approval without even realizing it. They shape their personalities to fit the room. They hold back their thoughts to avoid judgment. And they make decisions based on how others might perceive them. But the truth is, no amount of approval from others can fill the void left by ignoring your own purpose. Chasing approval is exhausting. It turns your life into a performance. You start doing things not because they matter to you, but because they might get you a compliment, a like, or a nod of validation. You begin measuring your worth by how many people agree with you, support you, or applaud you. And when the applause fades, when the attention shifts, you're left questioning your identity because it was built on shaky ground. Approval is temporary. It's conditional. It comes and goes based on trends, opinions, and moods. Purpose, on the other hand, is consistent. It stays with you, even when nobody's watching, even when nobody understands. Purpose is your internal compass. It's not about being popular. It's about being true. It's not about being accepted. It's about being real. When you chase purpose, you may lose followers, friends, or familiarity, but you gain clarity. You start waking up with a reason. You stop drifting. You stop apologizing for your ambition, your voice, your fire. You start making choices that reflect your deepest values, not someone else's comfort zone. Approval will tell you to play it safe. Purpose will push you to grow. Approval will keep you quiet when you know you should speak. Your zones. Purpose will give you the courage to stand tall even if you're standing alone. The need for approval is often rooted in fear, the fear of rejection, the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of not being enough. But purpose is rooted in conviction. It doesn't ask for permission. It moves with intent. It knows that even if you don't have everyone's support, you're still walking in the right direction. Living with purpose means choosing the harder road sometimes. It means passing up easy opportunity, ease that look good on the outside, but don't align with your inner values. It means showing up day after day for a vision that most people can't see yet. And yes, it means dealing with criticism, isolation, and setback. But it also means living with integrity. It means looking in the mirror and knowing you didn't sell yourself short to make someone else feel comfortable. You gotta ask yourself, am I making this decision because it's what I want or because I'm afraid of what people will think if I don't? Are my dreams shaped by what I believe I can do or by what others think I should do? Approval can be addictive, but it's a trap. The more you chase it, the more power you give away. But the moment you choose purpose, you take that power back. You stop shrinking to fit in. You stop compromising what matters to gain acceptance. You stop living by other people's rules and start building a life that reflects your truth. When you operate from purpose, your energy changes. You're no longer swayed by every opinion. You don't crumble when people doubt you. You stay grounded because your direction doesn't come from outside. It comes from within. That's when life starts to feel real. Not perfect, not easy, but real. And in that realness, there's strength, there's momentum, there's freedom. You start attracting the right people, the ones who respect your authenticity, not just your image. You start creating impact, not because you're trying to impress, but because you're trying to fulfill something meaningful inside you. People may not always understand your choices, especially when you stop performing for their approval. But that's okay. You're not here to meet their expectations. You're here to live your mission, to build your vision, to honor the calling that was placed on your heart for a reason. That kind of clarity scares people who haven't found their own. But you don't need everyone to understand you. You just need to stay committed to your purpose. No matter how loud the noise gets around you, there will come a time on your journey when you realize that not everyone is meant to walk with you. The further you go into living on your own terms, the more you'll feel the distance between you and the people who are content with playing small. When you make the decision to stand in your truth, to live boldly, to break away from the norm, you have to be prepared for the loneliness that sometimes comes with it. Because most people would rather blend in than stand out. Most people would rather be accepted than be authentic. And the moment you choose truth over comfort, the crowd starts to thin. Choosing truth means refusing to play a role just to be liked. It means no longer adjusting your values to keep the peace. It means not watering yourself down so others feel comfortable around you. That can be uncomfortable. That can be isolating, but it's also where you find your real strength. Because when you can stand alone in your truth without bending, without apologizing, without shrinking, that's when you know you've stepped into real freedom. You're no longer dependent on external validation. You're no longer driven by fear of rejection. You're grounded in something deeper. When you live for comfort, you say yes when you want to say no. You keep quiet when your voice is needed. You stay in places, jobs, and relationships that drain you just because it's familiar. That kind of life might feel safe, but it's a slow death to your soul. Comfort zones are where dreams go to die. They're full of what ifs and almost. They're filled with people who will never understand the kind of hunger that keeps you up at night because they've never dared to want more. Truth, on the other hand, is alive. It's bold. It disrupts. It shakes things up. It demands that you get uncomfortable. It pulls you toward growth, toward purpose, toward greatness. But it doesn't come without cost. You might lose people. You might lose approval. You might even lose the old version of yourself. But what you gain is worth more than any of that. You gain integrity. You gain clarity. You gain the kind of inner peace that only comes when your actions align with your values. Standing alone doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you're strong enough to not compromise who you are just to be accepted. It means you've outgrown the need for a crowd to feel confident. It means you understand that solitude is often the price for authenticity. And it's in that solitude that your voice gets louder, your vision gets clearer, and your mission gets stronger. The people who truly belong in your life will not ask you to tone it down. They will not ask you to dim your light. They'll recognize your fire and respect your courage. But you only find those people after you stop pretending to be someone you're not. There's a shift that happens when you prioritize truth over comfort. You stop trying to fit into boxes that were never meant for you. You stop saying yes to things that steal your energy. You stop betraying yourself just to keep the peace. That shift might cost you relationships. It might cost you opportunity, but what it gives you is power. The power to walk in alignment. The power to trust yourself. The power to live life on your own terms. You were never meant to be small. You were never meant to be silent. And yet, the world would try to convince you otherwise. It would tell you to play along, to stay quiet, to follow the rules. But rules were made to be broken when they keep you from your truth. Standing in your truth will not always feel good. It will not always feel safe, but it will always be right. Because nothing in this world can compare to the strength of someone who knows who they are and refuses to be anything less. You'll find that when you let go of the need to be understood by everyone, you open the door to finally understanding yourself. You begin to make peace with the silence. You begin to find comfort in your own company. And in that space, in that stillness, something powerful is born: self-respect. The kind that no one can give you and no one can take away. The kind that is earned every time you choose truth over comfort, every time you choose purpose over popularity, every time you walk alone, because standing with the crowd would mean betraying your own heart. There's a dangerous lie that too many people believe. The idea that you have to wait for the right moment to begin. They tell themselves they'll start when they feel ready, when the timing is better, when the fear goes away, when they have more support, more money, more confidence. But the truth is, that perfect moment doesn't exist. It never has, and it never will. Waiting for it only leads to regret, to wasted time, to dreams that never get off the ground. Living on your own terms means deciding that you're done waiting. No hesitating, done stalling. It means understanding that the conditions may never be ideal, but you have to move anyway. Taking action without waiting for perfect conditions is what separates those who succeed from those who just talk about it. Everyone has ideas. Everyone has dreams. But few are willing to take messy, uncertain, imperfect action toward them. Most people are so afraid of failing that they never even try. They stay stuck in planning mode, in research mode, in someday mode. But planning isn't progress. Dreaming isn't doing. At some point, you have to stop preparing and start building. You have to step into the unknown with all your flaws, all your fears, and all your doubts and move anyway. Action builds clarity. Action builds confidence. You don't need all the answers before you begin. You just need to begin. Every step you take forward reveals something new, teaches you something important, brings you closer to what you want. But if you wait until you feel totally ready, you'll be stuck in the same place a year from now, 5 years from now, wondering what could have happened if you just moved. You can't control everything. You won't always feel prepared, but growth doesn't happen in preparation. It happens in motion. Starting before you're ready is uncomfortable. It feels risky. It feels uncertain. But that discomfort is where transformation begins. You're supposed to feel fear. You're supposed to have doubts. That doesn't mean you're not capable. It means you're human. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to act anyway. The people you admire, the people do admire, the people doing big things, they weren't fearless, they just refused to let fear have the final say. They acted through the fear, not around it. Every great story begins with someone who decided that they couldn't wait any longer. Someone who didn't have it all figured out but showed up anyway. Someone who fell and got back up again because the vision meant more than the fear. If you're serious about living on your own terms, you can't keep waiting for someone else to validate your dream. You can't keep hoping for the right moment. You have to make the moment right by choosing to act now. That's how momentum is created. By doing something, anything, and letting the lesson shape you along the way. It's not about giant leaps. It's about consistent, intentional steps. It's about starting where you are, with what you have, and trusting that you'll grow as you go. You don't need to see the entire staircase to take the first step. You don't need the whole plan mapped out to take action today. All you need is the willingness to move, even if you're moving scared. Especially if you're moving scared. Because when you take that first step, you send a message to yourself and to the world. I'm not waiting anymore. I'm ready to live on purpose. People often say they're stuck, but most of the time they're not stuck. They're just afraid.